since it's on
Right.
now.
So we're streaming live on YouTube right now, but I was just saying that given the moment that we're in a pandemic with all sorts of ramifications and other things going on, we were about to do a bit of a check-in, and maybe folks would want to do that before we do the streaming and the recording. I know it's a pain, but, or we can,
Let's do it at the end, because since it took a really long time for the stream to work today, I feel like there's probably higher than usual internet traffic everywhere.
Yes.
Maybe we should just do the meeting while we have the stream, and then try and end 15 minutes early and do a check-in with people off air afterwards, if that works.
Yeah.
Cool.
That sounds good.
All right, so this is a community outreach meeting for Backdrop CMS. Today is Thursday, March 19th. Before we get into things on the agenda, it would be good if everybody could just go around and say what your name is, where you're from, and maybe what you're working on today, or anything in particular you want to share with the group, but please try and keep it to 30 seconds or less so we don't go on forever. Let's start with Greg, because you're in my top left.
Sorry, I was distracted. I was saying who we are and what we're doing.
Yep.
Yeah, so I'm Greg. I'm joining from Melbourne. Just here to help out and to catch up with what's the latest with Backdrop and help as much as I can. In sort of like self-isolation, as most of the people, the agency I work for started doing that last week. So.
Tim?
I am Tim Erickson, St. Paul Tim. I have relocated to northern Minnesota, about 2 hours north of Minneapolis for the time being, hanging out with my parents and the deer and geese, and the wild turkeys. I've been working on trying to get opportunities for people to build backdrop sites on their own out there. Including, I'm trying to launch sort of an ongoing class in the next week, building sites with Backdrop.
That's great. Luke.
All right, not muted. I am Luke McCormick, handle Cellier, coming to you from Danville, California, which is near San Francisco. I'm not actually in Costa Rica. I'm sorry, St. Thomas. I'm also not in St. Thomas. I am also working on some online education like Tim was talking about, and particularly with regards to Backdrop, I am exploring data migration issues and ready-to-wear themes are sort of the two areas I'm kind of focusing on within Backdrop.
That's great. Jack?
Hey y'all, Jack Aponte, my pronouns are they and them. I am in Oakland, California, so I'm under the shelter in place like Jen and maybe like Luke. Are you? Yeah. Yep. So, which I'm relieved for personally, that they're doing that. And most of my work continues as normal, weirdly, because I work from home and do this all the time. Today, I'm going to prep for Discovery meeting tomorrow for a new Backdrop website, though, so that's exciting.
That's great. Peter?
Yeah, Peter, currently in Estonia. We're getting luck this time. Next week, I'll be on my way to Australia, but who knows? Lately, I've been working on the Tugboat contributed module and also the integration of Tugboat with the Backdrop CMS website. So, yeah.
That's great. Joseph?
My name is Joseph from Las Vegas, and I haven't really been working on anything directly related to outreach, just back-end stuff, I guess.
All right, I'm Jen Lampton. I'm also in Oakland under the shelter-in-place order here. So this week I got very excited about building a user interface for upgrades. So that's what I've been working on lately. Hopefully we'll talk about that in the dev meeting. For today's meeting, we have a couple of things that carry over from last week that we haven't done. I still don't have access to our newsletter on MailJet. For some reason, emails from MailJet are not getting to us, which is decreasing my confidence in their ability to get emails out to anyone else. Nate seems to think the problem is related to our email forwarding that we have set up for Backdrop, because it goes through our registrar, who might be the one who's responsible for blocking emails from MailJet. So we've got sort of this like 3-step process where we're not really sure where the point of failure is, but trying to get that worked out. Last week, we were also supposed to write a blog post about our new PMC members. I had started a draft of that and then closed my browser tab and lost it. And then everything went crazy in California with the virus in terms of, the shelter in place order came out, but also a whole bunch of organizations that I'm involved with canceled a bunch of events. As many people in the Drupal world know, we've got the same thing where there's a bunch of events. And there was a lot of fallback here from people who didn't want the events to be canceled yet. So I was dealing with that last week and didn't get a chance to write the blog post. So I asked if anyone else in the PMC wanted to write it, and it looked like everybody in the world was sort of under similar high stress, low time conditions last week. So we didn't get our blog post out last week. It's a little bit more relaxed this week because everybody's now locked in their houses. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to get that done today. Tim, before the meeting started, you mentioned you were working on sharing information on how to do things with Backdrop. Do you want to give us an update on that now? And then I put that under the blog post section here because I also wondered if you wanted to write anything about that on the Backdrop blog.
Sure. So we had, I've been experimenting with a setup where users can spin up their own Backdrop site, similar to what we offer for 24-hour demos, except with I'm spinning them up with sort of a pre-started site. So it's got some configuration and content there already, and was working on that anyways. And I just thought right now is a time, a lot of people have time on their hands, want to do stuff. So I'm just trying to get that out there, let people play with it, use it, and offer more resources and training that you could use either with the sites that we have that that you can spin up, and we've got a domain for it. We're simplo.site, and or they, it'll be applicable to any Backdrop site. So you could start from raw Backdrop core, hosted anywhere. So I'm hoping to launch a class. Well, like a weekly class next week, sort of walking through some of and getting deeper into the tools, but also providing some higher level support right away for people who want to do more videos. I've done some videos in the past, and I just want to start cranking out more videos now. Seems like a good time for that. So happy to talk about that more if people have questions.
Great. So we don't have anything else super urgent for today's agenda, but before the meeting started, I think we were talking about how it might be good to do something that's relevant to the times that we're going through right now. I don't know what that might be in terms of trying to help people. I don't know. I feel sort of conflicted about doing it as a outreach, like incentivized thing. But it might be good to say something somehow that if it might be helpful. So I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on that. Do we have any information that we think people could benefit from that would be worth getting out right now? Whether it helps us get our brand out there or not is not as important to me as like trying to help our community come together.
Sorry, go ahead, Luke.
Well, I was just going to mention that one thing that the rest of the world is struggling with that we're actually super good at is this, right? I mean, we do these virtual meetings all the time and have it fully debugged. And the rest of the world is busily downloading Zoom right now and trying to figure out what's going on. So it might be helpful to say, oh, by the way, here's what we do very effectively for, several years now. It works.
Yeah, I agree. That idea was thrown around yesterday to during our team meeting in the agency I work for. We can help local schools organize remote teaching and things like that. Also, we had that Backdrop for Good thing. I'm not sure how that has gone, but I checked earlier, and there's an issue with the SSL certificate. I poked Jeff, have a look. Maybe we want to sort of like expose that or promote that a little bit more, and through that get people that want to get sites out there that help people in these times.
The hesitation in your voice, Jen, I think we should sort of confront that head on and just sort of name it, right? Which is that there's an opportunity for us, you know, to get Backdrop out there to do what it's there to do. But the danger, and I think the thing that it's easy to be worried about, is like appearing like we're, you know, trying to push our brand or, you know, trying to leverage the situation to our benefit. And I don't think that's our goal, right? I mean, a lot of us put a lot of time into this to help nonprofits, to help people, you know, in times of crisis, and that's what this is, right? So to sort of stand, I'm feeling this very much myself, right? Like I want to do things, I want to get them out there, but I don't want to appear like I'm like taking advantage of the situation. But I don't think that's what it is, really, right? It's like that's why I do this work, is to be available and to be a resource at a time like this. And so we just need to figure out how to communicate that, I think. And it is a little hard and it's difficult. So I'd love to hear what other people think about that.
It has never even crossed my mind that people will perceive it as that. So I don't know. Like as taking it balance, we are a non-profit open source project, so
I think it depends on how you do it and how you phrase it, right? And
yeah, maybe
it certainly could be done in a way that would feel offensive. I don't know that that's going to be our problem, though. I think our problem is more likely the opposite, where we're afraid to talk about ourselves because of that.
Yeah, I think the reason I'm particularly sensitive to it today is because I saw a conversation, I don't know, it was on Twitter or something, where people were saying, you know, I'm getting a whole bunch of emails about how businesses are responding to this crisis, but I wonder how many of them are drip marketing efforts rather than needing to actually deliver this information to people. And it was interesting that people had that reaction when there wasn't any one message that they looked at it and said this was marketing. It was just kind of like, wow, I'm getting a lot of these. And so for me, it seems like adding to that noise might not be useful. If it is already starting to bother people, that like, you know, why do I need to know, you know, what YouTube is doing with its employees right now? Or that's not an example that's real, but just something like that, where I don't know. I feel like if we have something where, you know, we can put information on our blog, but we don't put it in the newsletter or something like that, it might be better. So that's like information's here if you want it, but we're not going to shove it in front of your face, along with all of the other 100 emails that you got today with people talking about things that maybe aren't relevant to you right now. Right. So yeah, also the fact that this meeting is about, you know, how do we get our brand in front of people, and I'm feeling a little uncomfortable about doing that right now anyway. But yeah, I think it's also about how to help foster our existing community as well as people who don't know about us. And I think that it is important to come together in times of need. So trying to figure out how to bring those two things together, I guess.
Maybe this is the time to be inclusive with groups that we, you know, frequently view as competitors. You know, we're, you know, I'm always like, how can we steal customers from WordPress? but you know, this might be a time to like push, like, okay, if you need to get information out, you know, WordPress.com is a great place to go. Wix, Squarespace, like rather than push for differentiation, push for coverage, push for, you know, if you have the messages to go out, here's what we do, here's what you can use, but you know, you might want these other things. You know, we could be like the you know, the Santa Claus in Miracle on on 34th Street, sending people to the other store
Right.
as a way to, like do what we think is right. And
Right.
at the time.
I think one of the other weird things about an open source community like ours is Gregory talks about it all the time, and it's certainly true for me, is that Backdrop is very much a source of therapy for me at times, right? It's like something I do to take my mind off of other things. And
Happy place.
it's a happy place to go and work on stuff, right? And it could be that for some other people. And if we like clam up during this time because we don't want to be pushing ourselves, that might not be the right reaction, right? It's like if people are looking for something like this to be involved in right now, I don't know that the healthy response is to like quit talking about ourselves. So,
Yeah.
but definitely we need to find that balance. And I think you're right. I don't want to send any like, oh, here's the Backdrop's response to COVID-19 email.
Yeah.
I've had enough of those. I don't want to do
Yeah.
that. I think it's more about going about business as usual, but with some sensitivity and maybe a little bit of focus.
Okay. I think it sounds
So
good.
we have a saying in Greece. It says that you always find the truth from kids and crazy people. So my daughter has been, schools have been closed, and she says her favorite phrase is like, I'm bored all the time. So people are really bored. They're in house and like they're bored, so they can contribute. Like we can reach out to them and say, hey, this is what we're doing. Do you want to help us? So instead of just saying we are promoting ourselves, is hey, if you don't have what to do and you want to keep your brains busy and take your thoughts off of nasty things that are happening right now, just come and help us do something really good. So I don't know. Others have better words than mine, but this is the gist of it. But sort of like the idea.
Well, let me pick up on that. I mean, one of the things that we have like an insatiable desire for all the time is people who aren't familiar with the product. like if people are bored and want to check something out, it's like, hey, all we need is you with a working internet connection, and just get in touch, and we will tell you what you can do for us that's useful. You don't actually have to know how to do anything ahead of time. We're very interested in what your first impressions are of a whole variety of things.
Usability tests.
If people are looking for something to do, we could totally use that.
Anybody else that hasn't had anything to say want to chime in here?
I actually got a good idea for a blog post on what we were just saying.
Hey y'all, this is Jack. I'm back. I'm gonna leave video off for now. I have no idea what's been said already though, so I don't. If someone could do like a quick recap maybe of where we're at.
Well, yeah, because I'd love your input on this. We've been talking a little bit about the dilemma right now between talking about what we're doing and inviting people to both use and contribute to Backdrop without feeling like we're exploiting the situation or just contributing to the noise that's out there already. Yeah, I guess that's the sum of what we've been sort of chatting about. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, I guess, I'm glad that folks feel like we should be sensitive to not look like we're trying to take advantage of the situation so much. So yeah, like just having a mind to that as we do any kind of outreach during this seems important. Also understanding that for some folks, like, yeah, like capacity stays exactly the same as it's always been. So like, for some folks, capacity will be freed up. Last thought is just like, there's a lot of overhead, or there's a lot involved in like managing kind of like volunteers. So if we're getting to the point of like asking folks to volunteer on stuff, or like kind of more in that way rather than just independently pick up stuff and do it, that takes a fair amount of oversight. So, but those are the only thoughts I'd have on that particular approach.
Well, I think there's going to be a real mix of people out there, right? There are going to be those for whom their like availability doesn't change at all. There's going to be those who have more and are looking for things to do, and others who, frankly, life is going to be it's going to overwhelm them, and circumstances overwhelm them, and they're just
Yeah.
not going to be there, right? And I think we just have to be prepared for all of those scenarios and sensitive to them. But one of the things we were saying, Jack, before you got back, is that for some of us, it's a really healthy thing to have a place like this to focus our efforts. And I don't think it's wrong to talk about that, right? And to invite others that if they need something to do, that we're here to help them. And it's, I mean, I view, again, Backdrop is something that's helping nonprofits and people who have ideas and want to make the world a better place, that it's a tool for them. And if people feel like they're really looking for a place to contribute, this is one option. It's not the only one, there's many. And
No, definitely. That sounds right on to me.
okay. So any specific ideas on what or how to do that? Because that's the hard part, right? Since everybody else seems really quiet on this topic, I think some of it is what I said already, which is just doing what we normally do with sensitivity, right? And communicating what we're doing with that sensitivity, and maybe there's a little more communication just because the times warrant it. But again, it doesn't have to be aggressive, and it doesn't have to, and it should be sensitive to what's going on. So I think I've backed off on the tweeting a bit, especially in the last few days, sort of in the midst of this. But I think as people settle into the routine, we should keep tweeting, and we should keep letting people know what we're doing and inviting them to participate, but not pressuring. Any other thoughts? Okay.
Actually, that kind of resonates all through my communities and all through lots of communities. You see folks going online to do stuff that they didn't used to do online. Oh, there's my uncle calling. Well, I'll call him back in a second. And I think that actually might resonate right now, that we could say, hey, like, we're actually a community that is a community online. We're used to meeting, like, you can participate. So if you're looking for something like that, it might be really fitting right now, actually. And in some ways, we might be better equipped than other communities that are not used to this mode of operation all the time. So cool. I'm going to go again. Sorry.
Okay. Well, Jen, do you have anything to add yet?
No. One thing I did want to note, though, is that at the beginning of this meeting, we did introductions, and we all went around and said our names and where we're from, and if there was anything we wanted to provide an update on, Backdrop related or otherwise. And I noticed we have a couple new people who joined the meeting, so I wanted to see if Matthias or John were willing to introduce themselves and share something. Matthias, do you want to go first?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm Matthias, living in Switzerland, being a Drupal developer for 10 years, more on the front side, and I'm a copywriter as a main profession. I'm working as a freelancer and have plenty of Backdrop sites in the making right now. Also migration from Drupal 7.
Thanks.
John, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, this is John. I had been away from Backdrop for a while. I wanted to check in and see what was up, what's happening. I'm kind of splitting my attention now between different initiatives. I'm hosting a website for my community, which is not Backdrop. I prepared a website for my amateur radio club, which is WordPress. I'm still trying to figure out how to incorporate Backdrop into my various initiatives. It seems like, even though I seem like it's a good thing to use, I keep getting pulled often by other forces. So, and also our club is looking at using Zoom for meetings. Right now we do communications quite a bit over amateur radio, but that's not sufficient under these conditions. We want something that can allow us to have meetings and have demonstrations and such. So that was another reason I wanted to tune in, because I know you guys are pretty good at doing this sort of thing. When I was thinking about how you want to do outreach, I think one of the things that is really helpful is to identify what are the issues that people are facing, and if they would like to present those issues to the backdrop community as to how would you solve this problem, that sort of thing. You know, a lot of it is not technical, of course. It's social and political and all that, but I think maybe you guys have insights into these problems that people face, which are being accentuated by the conditions we're under now. So those are my thoughts. So if you want to ask questions about my thoughts, I'll try to respond.
That's great, thanks.
So we started doing office hours again for March. I think stress, you know, I've been getting hit up by a number of nonprofits that have actually been pretty busy this week with these small requests from nonprofits that are either like, oh, we need to post an emergency announcement and we just need some quick help doing that. Or I think the other thing that I sense is happening is they just have more time on their hands. So they're coming to me with these little things that just weren't a priority 2 weeks ago. And today they're only a priority because they have time on their hands and they're trying to keep busy. But my point is that I think a lot of our clients are going to, you know, or a lot of backdrop users are going to be facing those same kinds of requests, and like making ourselves available through the office hours and just sort of reinforcing the ways that we're available to people who could really use help right now is a legitimate and an important thing for us to do. Does that make sense? Okay. This meeting is the quietest backdrop meeting I've ever been at.
Lots of folks.
Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, is anyone interested in turning off the live stream and talking more openly about things that we might be facing?
I think we should do that. I'm going to throw one last thing out there. That is something that I think we would have, or that we might want to consider participating in. We connected with, what's his name? Brian Olienke joined us like a week ago, and he was talking about making cross-community connections. And we did have a drop-in visitor from the Classic Press community, and there's some talk about sort of having a meeting with them just to talk about stuff. That was before life got crazy, but and another thing that Brian drew our attention to was I think Drupaldelphia has become an open source CMS event, and they're hoping to do something in April, and they weren't far enough along in their planning that they, while they were at a good point where they were able to sort of say, we don't know if we'll be able to do this physically, it might be a virtual event, but it's already a WordPress Drupal event, and, you know, and they've labeled it as sort of open source CMS. And it seems to me that those kinds of online events might be in demand right now, and that this is a good opportunity for us to collaborate with these other communities. And I've already tweeted at them that I'm interested in being a part of that if it happens, and especially, well, now it can only be virtual. But I don't know if we want to more formally as a community sort of reach out and participate in something like that. Given the quietness, though, I'm thinking maybe we talk about that next week. And for now, we do what Jen just suggested. Let's turn off the speaker. And
I also wanted to throw out that Stanford used to be Drupal Camp, is now Stanford Web Camp, and that's next week. And they're doing the same thing. So it is interesting to see a lot of Drupal-only events shifting focus to be open to more open source CMSs or web solutions, which is kind of interesting.
Okay.
Is Stanford Camp going virtual, or have we heard anything there? Yeah.
Yeah, they're going to try and do 4 Zoom rooms at the same time, I think. So you still have like a selection of what you want to choose, and then everything's getting posted online afterwards. So if you miss a presentation, you'll get to see it. So
Mhm.
gonna give it a
Well, on
shot.
that topic, any word about DrupalCon?
They put out a blog post yesterday that said they're working on it. Tim, you might know more than I do here.
The gist of, sorry, you go ahead.
I got it. Their original message was basically the problem is that they can't cancel right now without being told they have to cancel, or they lose a lot of money. So they're just hoping the government says you can't happen. But after that message on the site, I got another message. I don't even remember the channel, but it basically said DrupalCon will not be happening in May. But I think they're saying that without officially canceling it for the reasons that I just mentioned. And they're looking at postponing it. That seems to be their preference right now, is to try and do it, but to do it at a later date. But that may not be possible. So
They will not sell tickets, I assume.
What?
They will not sell any tickets right now.
Right. Sure. Yeah. And they're certainly offering refunds. I think maybe they're not. Did they offer refunds?
I think that if it's not going to happen, then
the
decision is not. So the whole I read the same article, and that blog post was that basically there's legal issues and monetary issues, and they like to wait it out before they make an announcement. But the thought is that it's not likely to happen if the situation continues to be as it is.
Okay.
But they're not announcing anything official yet.
I heard a message from someone in the DA that said it will not be happening.
Or it will not be happening in
May.
May, right? So I think like they're still looking at like, can we push it to June or July, or can we push it to a different venue? So it's not entirely canceled yet. So they might not be like too worried about stopping ticket sales if they think they're going to have it again somewhere else. But yeah, it all sounds like they don't have a definitive answer for us yet. So, TBD, but not in not in May in Minneapolis. So I canceled my flight happily knowing that I wasn't going to be missing anything by not going to Minneapolis in May.
I have a comment.
Go ahead,
John. I have a comment. Let me turn on my camera. Our Seattle Drupal users group is going online for a meeting. This is their first time this Thursday. Is today Thursday? Yeah, today's Thursday. If you guys are aware of those meetings and they are virtual, you might get yourself invited to them, perhaps just as a way to socialize and communicate with those groups. Because normally when we have physical meetings, you can't really participate. But because the local clubs, I suspect, will start going virtual with their meetings, you could target some of those to form relationships or some recognition or awareness of what you're doing and so forth. I know you can't just weasel your way into meetings, but if you're there and people have questions, you can answer them. And I know time is precious and you can't do all of those things, but if you choose them, if you spread it out and you choose ones that you have some affinity for, that might be a way to expand your presence. So that's a thought.
What was that? Like, do you have an online presence currently, like a site for the Seattle meetings?
Pardon?
Do you have like a site? Where can we sort of like, how do we?
Yeah, let me, I want to go offline for a second. I'll give you a link in the chat section.
Okay, thanks.
Great. All right, anything else we should talk about while the stream is on? No? Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and turn off the stream. And for those who are watching, we will kick off the development meeting in just about 15 minutes. And we'll be back online.
Be well, everyone.